Hey everybody, this is Davison here, and I just wanted to start off by saying I was about an hour into recording this video before I realized the microphone was muted, and it's very much not possible for me to go back and redo what I did. So I'm just going to tell you what I've done here between episodes. If we open up our main character script, this is what you should have right now. You'll have this main character script. The first thing I did was I created a new function called void update. This is runs I think it's every frame. It might be even faster than every frame. And what I did was if the player presses F8 on their keyboard, it's going to run this function called reset game. I created a new function called called reset game. And these are just all the values that were up here earlier when we had to click the play button twice, which reset the game. So now we can reset the game anytime we click F8. This will be reset. This will be redone later on when we actually have like a restart game button. You'll notice I have the variable first game is set to 0 here. And I also have a scene manager load screen, which loads our character creation screen. So when this is run, it's going to go all the way back to the beginning of the script because the beginning of the script is going to be ran. You'll notice additionally in the check here if first game is equal to 0. So this means the game has not run before. I wanted to check to make sure that the character or the player is actually indeed in the character creation screen. If they are not in that screen, then I want to put them in there. So what I did is if they're if they're in a random scene and that scene is not the creation screen, then we're going to redirect them to the creation screen. Then the script's reran because of how it works, and then it's going to see that this passes, and then it's going to continue on, and we're going to be able to create our new character. The other thing we had to do here was we had a bug where you could go back to the character creation screen but stop the game, and if you click play again, it would think that you had already put values in there. So how I went about fixing that was if you look down here, this is the button that says begin adventure. This only shows once you have the 20 attribute points assigned. Once that button shows and is clicked, first game is going to be set to 1, and then character creation first game is going to be set to 1. So this allows us, if we click play here, we click F8, everything's been reset. If we click play again, we are now on the character creation screen again. We can assign values and begin our adventure, and we are in the scene that we defined. But if we stop playing and replay, we are again in that scene. We click F8, everything's been reset. So the next thing I did, I'll show you, is we created a prefab. So if we go to our scenes creation screen, we had that manager, which is what had the script on it. What we decided to do though was, I'll go ahead and delete this prefab here, is we took manager and simply dragged it down to our scripting folder. So why did we do that? Is we needed a prefab that's going to exist in all of our scenes. Next thing we're doing now, which I had not worked on thankfully before I noticed the recording was down, was our character user interface. So what we did was I just simply created a new C# script, create C# script. I named it character UI. Before we start working on this though, is we're going to drag character UI onto manager and do save. Now you can see this prefab called manager has these two scripts attached on it, and would end the scene here. If I click on manager, you can see that's here too. I also created that game world 000, which is what was being called here on scene manager.load screen. So when the player clicked begin adventure, we needed to load a scene, and so we just created that by doing Control N. So if we go ahead and open game world 000, I'm going to go ahead and delete this prefab and save it. So Control S. I'm going to drag this prefab up here, put it in the left here. Awesome. So now this prefab exists in game world and it's consistent. So if we click play in game world, you can see that we can click F8 and everything works as we would expect. But let me show you something. If I delete manager, save, and click play, and I click F8, nothing's going to happen. Why? It's because these scripts are attached to this prefab, and this scene does not contain these scripts. You have to have something that's consistent between all your screens that have everything on it. So that's what manager is. So now we're going to be working on our character user interface here, okay? So to do that, we're going to go ahead and open up that script. So if we go to Unity, character UI, Monodevelop is being a little funky. Here it is. It's an empty script. Very first thing I want to do here is I want to create some. I think I want to create some variables first. That's always a great way to do this. Before we do that, there's two things I want to consider. The user interface right now we're going to be working on is solely for action bar. And something about RPGs that I like is it's called a cooldown. So, but instead of having each ability be on a cooldown, I just want everything to be on cooldown. So I'm just going to create a global cooldown. I think it'll be easier for now to do this. But in the future, we might say just do like an individual cooldown for each ability. But a global cooldown just means once one ability is pressed, no other ability can be activated until like a certain amount of time has passed. So we'll keep that in mind. And one other thing we're going to be doing here is we're not going to be actually doing any scripting for the GUI. We're going to be using the Unity UI, which is apparently more robust, and they're actually phasing out the on-GUI functions that we've been using. So we might update our character creation screen at some point, but moving on in the future, we are not going to be using any of the on-GUI stuff in our scripting. So I'll show you how that works in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do public float global cooldown. That's going to be our cooldown in seconds. Private float global cooldown remains. So that's how much time remains. Okay, so next what I want to do is on our start function, I want to go ahead and define our global cooldown. So we'll say global cooldown equals 2f equals 2f. And then on our void update function, we are going to do a few things. So we're going to do if this happens, then this is going to happen. It's a lot of typing. So we're going to have a bunch of stuff between this if statement. So so this is all for the global cooldown. If time is greater than global cooldown remain. So we're saying if the current time is greater than the time that remains for the global cooldown, then we're going to do stuff. So this is basically how we define the global cooldown. I think the global cooldown is going to be set to 2 seconds. That's what 2f is going to be for. So if input dot get key down, and we're going to say if user clicks number 1, which is right above the QWERTY, if they press that, then what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to do a new function. So we're going to do a function here, and we're going to define the function in a second. But we're going to say this is just action bar 1, and we're just going to go ahead and give it. We're going to pass it a string, basic attack, and then we're going to do global cooldown remain equals time dot time plus global cooldown. Let's see here. Now what we want to do here is do an else statement, and we'll come back to this input thing. We're gonna do like 5, I think. So like we'll have 5 abilities. But let's just see what happens. So if they're able to click on ability, they'll actually be able to do something. But if they're not, we need to give an error. So do else. Oh, I did that wrong. Else. We're gonna say if. Do another if statement here. We're gonna say if input. Always copy this. Input is this. We are gonna have 5 of them, so we'll do all 5 of these. 2, 3, 4, 5. So what this means is if the key put if user presses 1, or if the button is 2, or if 3 is pressed, or if 4 is pressed, or if 5 is pressed, then what we're gonna say is we want to know how much time's left. So debug.log, and we're just gonna say global cool down time remains is, and we're gonna just do global cooldown remains divided by 1,000, which will give it into seconds, plus another string seconds. So let's go ahead. Before we can test this, though, we have to define this action, this function action bar 1. So let's get out of the update function, and we're gonna go. Just gonna go ahead and scroll down a little bit here, and we're gonna create a new function. We're gonna call it the action bar 1. It will be publicly accessible. Public void action bar 1. It takes a string, and we're gonna call it the variable action. And we're gonna say debug.log. We're gonna say action 1 was triggered. Player activated. And we're gonna say plus action. So when the user presses 1 and it's on a global cooldown, we're gonna call the function action bar 1, and we're passing it basic attack. Action bar 1 expects a string, so when we click that, we're gonna see action 1 was triggered, player activated, basic attack, because that's what we named it here. So let's go ahead and test this. So we go into our scene here. We gotta go ahead and define some numbers here. If we click 1, let's look at the console. Action 1 was triggered, but if we keep clicking it, we're getting some errors here. You can see though this has been done 3 times, because if we count 2 seconds, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Now it says 2, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Again, 3. So Unity just condenses this, but this hasn't been done. But if I keep spamming 1, you'll see that like this number of seconds remain. But after 2 seconds, you'll see that this number is going to go to 8, 9. So these are just all the time that was remaining between the time I was clicking. But we'll figure it out. But we have the basic cooldown functioning now. So we should probably go ahead and define our other 5 here. So this would be pretty easy. We can just copy this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just for now, I don't really know what I want these actions to be. We'll have to define those later and figure out how we're gonna code all of this. But we're gonna do a more powerful attack. Will be when user clicks button number 2. When I click button number 3, how about we do like a basic heal, because we have the basic attack. And maybe for 4, we don't want a really strong heal, I don't think, for right now. So we'll do like a buff. I don't know what kind of buff we could do, maybe like a med pack or something. And we'll do a sprint one, by the way, for 5. So when I click 1, we'll say basic attack, 2, a more powerful attack, 3 will be a basic heal, 4 will be a buff, and 5 will be sprint. We need to go ahead and do this though. Set that to 5, set that to 4, set this to 3, and set this to 2. Now we need to copy this, and we're going to do these functions. Action bar 1, action 2 was triggered. Action bar 3, action 3 was triggered. Bar 4, action 4 was triggered. Action bar 5 and action 5 was triggered. So let's go ahead and look at this. Click play. Let's go ahead and click like 4. Action 4 was triggered. Action 4 was triggered. Player activated. Buff 5 sprint. Cooldown got away. 3 basic heal. 1 was a basic attack, and 2 more powerful attack. So if I keep clicking on these buttons, we're getting these cooldown messages, but you're seeing up here these numbers are being updated. I'm just randomly clicking buttons, so so it's just proving that the cooldown is working. We'll probably mess with the cooldown timer later on, but I think the next thing we want to do now is we want to work on our canvas in the UI here. So we're just going to do Control S here to make sure everything's being saved. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new script. Not a script, we're going to create a new object, and we're just going to do UI. And we're going to create a new canvas here. So if we look at our canvas, sometimes it's easier to look at the canvas in 2D. We're going to zoom into our canvas just a little bit. This looks nice. And if we look at our canvas here, what we're going to want to do is right click and do new button. And here's our button for our UI. If we click play, you'll see our buttons right here in the middle of the screen, because as it was defined here. We're going to change this button up a little bit. We're going to say the width is going to be 50 and height 50, so a nice square button. Okay. Now we're going to take this button, make sure it's the right button, and we're just going to drag it down to the center. That was the anchor point. We want to move the entire button. There we go. Make sure we get everything though. It's a little tricky to move it sometimes. There's probably better ways of moving this, but if we click on this button though, we can do some anchor points. We're going to set an anchor point to always be middle center. So it's always going to be anchored to this point right here. So it will always look good. So if we click play now, we can see our button and we can press it and nothing's happening. We need 5 buttons. So we're just going to copy these buttons. So Control C, Control V, and we're just going to drag these buttons out. There's some snapping in Unity, so I'm just kind of letting them snap into place. So we have 5 buttons here. They all work. If we change the screen, you can see they're always floating here at the bottom. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, the screen's always going to be there in the center. Next, I want to do is rename these buttons. So I'm going to click button here. Click F2 and say slot 1. Next button, we're going to say F2 slot 2. Next one, F2 slot 3. Next one, slot 4. Last one, slot 5. Oop, and something happened here. Slot 5. Next, if we left click on slot 1, we can see where it says text. You see this button is actually in the 3rd row. So let's go ahead and change this texting here on the right. Put 3. This is in second place, so we need to set this to 2. We're going to have to do some fixing of these slots, by the way. Go to text. This is actually in 1. Slot 4. Slot 4 is actually in the correct position. Slot 4. I'm guessing slot 5 is going to be in the correct position as well. So we need slot 1 is actually slot 3. Slot 2 is correct. Slot 3 is actually slot 1. So we're just going to drag these into the correct position. Let's get this above this one. Having a little bit of difficulty. Might be better if I just like condense these. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the next thing I want to do here though is just to show you what's kind of coming. Is we're gonna be introducing some style changes to these buttons, but we're not gonna do that now. So just for now, if we right click on let's see, if we click on normal color, this is a normal button of the button. Let's just change this to 1F, 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 my favorite color. And then if we do the highlighted color, we'll just do like 2F, 2F, 2F. And if we go to text, we're gonna change the color to just FFF, which is white. That looks great. And we're gonna do these to the other buttons here, but you can see if I hover over, it's a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, I should say. And we're gonna go do this to the other buttons. So normal color, 1F, 1F, 1F. Awesome. So if we click the play button now, you can see our buttons are here, but none of our actions are being pulled. Do you know why that is? The answer here is they're only done if we actually click it on the keyboard, and that is because of the script here. We say only if get key down is done is this called. For now, to show you what I'm going to be doing in the future is I'm not actually going to have the user clicking on the buttons when they're playing the game. It's going to be all just on the keyboard 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But rather when they click 1, I'm going to have a window pop up where they can select what ability they want in the 1 slot. So when they click 1 on the keyboard, that ability is pulled, or triggered rather. But just to show you how that works though, is if we go to slot 1, you can see on here we have the on click function. So when 1 is clicked, something can happen. If you click the plus button, you're going to drag that manager prefab here. And now we have a bunch of options, and we're going to say character UI, and we can do the action bar. And then in the action bar thing, we'll type, let's just say basic attack test. So this is different from what's actually typed in there. So we're actually, the string is going to be called basic attack test. So we should see that when we press it. Yep, basic attack test. But if we click 1, we only have basic attack. And that is because if we remove this, I'll demonstrate it again. Click the plus sign. We drag our game object manager to prefab there. We click on the no function and we go to character UI. Action bar. We can do anything we do here. So we could say one shot all mobs. Click play. If we click 1 on the keyboard, action bar was triggered, basic attack was triggered. But if we click 1 here, one shot all mobs. You can see that there is a bug here. If you keep clicking this, there is no global cooldown. But that was by design because the global cooldown is only affecting the keyboard. When user clicks on 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 in the actual game though, like I said, a list of abilities for each slot is going to come up. And they're going to be able to assign which ability they want here. And we'll put like a background image so they know what ability it is. But yeah, so that's kind of where the game is at. So if we just start like a fresh game, we click play. We click the F8 to reset. We're gonna say our name is awesome Unity guy. Hashtag noob or hash noob. We're gonna have no strength hardly, but a lot of defense, some dexterity, and some reflex. Begin our adventure. And let's start off with a sprint. Cool, we have sprint. So in the next video, we're gonna actually work on probably getting the list up. So when you click 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, something's gonna pop up and you're gonna go to assign what you want. But yeah, I'm very sorry about the first video having been recorded halfway, only to realize the audio was muted. Like the last video, I'm going to be uploading all the files here to a GitHub repository, and the new repository is going to be like number 2 or whatever. So if you follow along in the first video, you can look at the second repository and look at changes between the code and see what you can change, or just kind of take a look. If you have any like bugs or issues, please post in the comments and I'll do my best to help you debug it. But thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you all next time I get another video. I'll see you all. Bye.